Namsiam has been a respected institution among classical musicians in the Philippines for its vision and objective in discovering and promoting budding artists, as well as promoting classical music in the country through competitions and festivals. It has provided a stage for young musicians to be heard by a larger audience, hence has become a source of motivation for many aspiring artists. Also, NAMSIA has commissioned Filipino composers to provide contest pieces for the different categories that enable the composers to be heard and discovered by classical music enthusiasts in the country. NAMSIA has been a great stepping stone for young artists who then successfully pursue a career in music, both in the Philippines and abroad. I wish NAMSIA continued success as it faces new challenges during and after this pandemic. I would like to congratulate and thank the officers and all the people behind this institution for their dedication and efforts in contributing to help build a strong foundation for the Filipino youth.
Welcome to the 2020 National Music Competitions for Young Artists Web Seminars. Last year, 2019, in preparation for this year, we at NAMSHA always project a theme that shall banner our posters, trumpeting all our programs and projects. After much brainstorming, we adopted the Cebuano, Tingog sa Paglaom, Sounds of Hope. A theme may just be a theme, but tingog in its various usage, unknowingly for us then, acquired more meaning in this day of age, one might say these surreal times. Beyond sounds, melodies of hope are bountiful, intoning actively that we, as a people, shall overcome the challenges ahead with the multitude of voices that speak hope. Hope reverberates louder, if not at its loudest, this year. In this tenor, NAMSHA 2020 resolves that life goes on. Life goes cautiously on. Life goes on cautiously with music. It is with this gleeful realization that NAMSHA going online, despite numerous challenges, opened an opportunity, a wider reach. You, our virtual audience. Aside from our annual competitions, we hope that this series of online web seminars could appease your anxiety as well as ours that our music world is in a standstill, paralyzed. With the assistance of our network of experts, music practitioners, educators bearing Filipino sensibilities, we have assembled this series of online seminars that could enrich not just musicianship, but reinforce our faith in the value of our art, especially in these trying times. Hoping that all of us sustain the best of health with an accompanying peace of mind to days ahead. Thank you.
Maraming salamat po, NAMSHA President Dr. Renato B. Lucas. Today, we welcome everyone to the second session of the 2020 NAMSHA Tingog sa Paglaom Sounds of Hope webinar series entitled Philippine Traditional Music in Popular Culture. Papakilala ko po naman ngayon ang ating pong tagapagsalita, ang ating speaker for today. She is a percussionist, ethnomusicologist, and educator who specializes in the music of the Philippines, Asia, West Africa, and Latin America. She graduated in 2012 with a Master of Music degree in musicology at the University of the Philippines College of Music. She taught at the University of Santo Tomas Conservatory of Music for 10 years and is currently a senior lecturer at the UP College of Music. She has performed in various festivals in the Philippines and abroad with notable local and international musicians such as Royal Hartigan, Edsel Gomez, Joe Bataan, Bob Aves, Grace Nono, Johnny Alegre, Winston Raval, and Bo Razon. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Teresa Tusa Montes.
Salamat po, Sir Ronan. And maraming salamat din sa NAMSIA Committee, kay Sir Ato. And mabuhay, kamusta kayong lahat? It's great to see everybody here. And to start this off, first thing I want to say is I apologize for sure. There are gonna be glitches. I mean, expect na there's no perfect session ngayon sa mga internet webinar activities. And this is the second of the webinar series that NAMSIA is organizing. Last week, yung first talk natin was very enlightening. It was a good discussion by Sir RJ Viray. So I think it's still up sa Facebook page ng NAMSIA and you can check that out. But today, ang tatalakayan naman natin is popular culture, and specifically, ang pag-contextualize ng Philippine traditional music sa pop culture. Okay, so these are big ideas that we're gonna try to go through sa session natin ngayon. So let's just get right to it. And the way I see it, pag sinabing Philippine music, kailangan natin makita ito for what it is, okay? Na hindi siya isang klase lamang, hindi siya isang tipong musika lamang, okay? We are 7,100 islands, and if you can just imagine, iba-ibang music cultures na nangyayari, na umaapaw, na nagaganap sa bawat isla sa Pilipinas. So, when we talk about Philippine music, and for me, if there's one thing to describe Philippine music, it's halo-halo. Okay? I'm sure most of us enjoy halo-halo, 'di ba? Ano 'yun? Parang iba-ibang sangkap na nilalagay sa baso, 'di ba? And ang Philippine music, 'yun, para siyang halo-halo. Okay? Because nahaluan ang musika ng Pilipinas ng iba't ibang klaseng mga aspeto. We have the indigenous music coming from the different ethno-linguistic groups in the country. Meron din tayo yung mga influences from the Spanish and the Americans due to our colonial past. And up to now, nararamdaman pa rin natin ang mga influences na nagsimula, na bumuod dahil doon. So, the second thing to consider about Philippine music is ang kanyang pagiging communal. Okay? So, pag sinabing musika ng Pilipinas, hindi naman to parating pang isang tao lamang. We have a lot of traditional musics that is shared. Okay? Kunyari, yung mga bamboo ensemble music sa mga taga-Cordillera, hindi yan pwedeng isang taon tumutugtog lamang. There's also our collective identity na, may mga kanta na marami ang may gusto, hindi lang isang tao. Okay? Maraming taong nakaka-relate doon. Okay? Meron tayong mga folk song na kabisado ng lahat. So, yung experiences, they can be shared. Okay? And lastly, the Philippine music is also personal. And I think this is important. When we go through this webinar today, as karamihan sa inyo yung mga music teachers, right? So, if there's one thing that I tell music teachers time and time again, is that dapat parati nyong isipin how Philippine music is a personal thing to you. Okay? Dapat once in a while, meron tayong mga regular reflections on how music, and specifically Philippine music, is important to us. Okay? Hindi lang to yung, kung ano yung nilatag sa textbook, ito yung sinabi ng DepEd, ito yung kailangan nyo ituro, it's there as a guide. But more than anything, paano nyo to kinakatawan? Paano nyo to ine-embody? Paano nyo ito ginagawang bahagi at ginagawang mas makabuluhan? Okay? Because ang nakakatawa, minsan, pag sinabing Philippine music, it feels like a requirement, right? Na parang, yan kailangan natin ituro kasi Pilipino tayo. Minsan, nagiging gano'n na lang. Or sometimes it's intimidating. Ano ba yan? Philippine music? Wala akong alam dyan. Pilipino ako, pero let's face it, kadalasan ang napapakinggan din natin ay mga musikang banyaga. Yan ang naririnig natin sa radyo. This is pop culture. Kadalasan ang mga top hits would be the songs, the music coming from abroad, like US, UK, and so on. So, but be that as it may, kailangan natin isipin, ang Philippine music, dapat kung ang estudyante, nararamdaman niya how you connect to it in a very, very personal way. Okay? And again, this is one thing to consider as we talk about traditional music and pop culture. Hopefully, this will make more sense later. So, basically, in this webinar, we examine the relationship between the two, traditional and popular, in the Philippine context. This is what this talk is all about. Okay? So, and let's just try to define them. Okay? Pag sinabing traditional music, Actually, mahirap sila i-define, by the way. So, pag mag-search kayo sa Google, ang dami-daming mga attempts to, define these two keywords, traditional and popular. Now, when we talk about traditional, actually, sinabi ni Sir RJ last week, there are many definitions, but if there's one common thing about traditional music, it is always situated in time. Okay? And yes, I agree very much with that. So, in fact, according to this website, traditionalmusic.org, ang sabi dito, songs and tunes which have been performed by custom over a long period, usually several generations. So, meron siyang time na pinagbabasihan. Na pag sinabing traditional music, this is music that's been around, it's been passed on over a long, extended period of time. It would also refer to folk songs, country dance, or similar types of folk music. And what's interesting is they may have been pop music at some point in time, o diba? So, we, in trying to put labels sa mga music na nangyayari ngayon, actually, people are so creative, sometimes nag-overlap na ang mga label, ang mga definition and ways and means to describe them. Traditional music, hindi mo siya pwede ikahon. Okay? Because they might have been popular music at some point in time. So, and then, habang tumatagal, naging, naturing na rin siyang traditional music. And of course, when we talk about traditional music, kasama na dyan ang musika ng mga katutubo, or yung indigenous music. O kumbaga, sa ating kasaysayan, ito yung parang pre-colonial music. Na karamihan nitong mga katutubong music ay nabuo, nabuo bago dumating ang mga Kastila. So that's traditional music. Now, when we talk about popular music, this is another concept that is hard to put into a very structured definition. In fact, from this book, Popular Music in Southeast Asia, ang sabi niya dito, in spite of its long and persistent presence, popular music is ill-defined. Meaning, ang hirap niyang ipaliwanag, ang hirap niyang bigyan talaga ng definition. Okay? Some keywords here. Kunyari, when we talk about popular, usually it belongs to the people. Yan ang kadalasan na pag-describe sa popular, meron siyang wild appeal. Pag sinabing popular, everybody loves it. It's the dominant force, okay? And it's encompassing. So, kunyari, yun, kung ano yung uso, kumbaga. More keywords here, it's Western. And when we deal with popular, it's associated with modernity. And it's associated with mass media. Okay? That's why pop culture is not just about the music, pero yung impact din niya and yung relation din niya with other forms of media like film and other digital media. Okay, there's that. And technology. And then, of course, meron yung mainstream pop and indie pop. Okay, yung mainstream, you have yung commercial pop. And then indie would be, outside of the commercial pop industry. Popular music also is an umbrella term for popular genre. So this is one thing that we need to keep in mind, okay? So popular music is an umbrella term for genres like pop, okay? Pop as a genre, okay? Meaning yung mga songs, yung mga verse, chorus, okay? And then you have jazz, rock, hip-hop, and then there's world music. Okay? World music, ito yung paghahalo ng pag-incorporate ng mga traditional indigenous music sa Western styles. Okay? So, napakalawak niya. Now, here in the Philippines, sa atin, tinutulog natin ng pop as Pinoy pop, or local pop, or OPM, original Filipino music. And there's been some debate with that na ito ba yung tamang label sa ating popular music or hindi. But in other words, meron tayong ating sariling local pop. Okay? So, now, yung topic na to, what got me into this, okay? And I think it's important that for me to put things in perspective, I would have to share a bit of where I'm coming from, okay? So, my musical journey, so to speak. Nag-aral ako ng musicology sa UP College of Music. Now, yung program namin doon, as a UP student, isa sa talagang in-encourage sa amin is to appreciate and to love indigenous music. Natuto ako magkulintang at in-enjoy ko magkulintang. Pero kahit na mahilig ako magkulintang, hindi ko naisip na many years later na magagamit ko siya in places that I would say went beyond my imagination. Okay? Like, nakakapagtugtog ako sa mga jazz festival because of the kulintang. And how is that even possible? I don't even play jazz. Okay? Dahil sa kulintang, yun na nga, I get to explore different popular music genres. And the journey has been quite interesting for me in that sense. So, natuto ko ng kulintang kay Aga May Butokan, isa siyang Magindanaon. Nagtuturo pa rin siya sa UP ngayon. So, and Ma'am Aga and I, we've had many conversations about yung paggamit ng traditional kulintang music sa pop or pag-fuse nito sa iba't ibang medium na ilalabas sa traditional. Okay? So, marami kaming conversations about this. And long story short, yung mga conversation na ito, paulit-ulit niyang akong in-encourage na, it's a good idea to incorporate kulintang sa iba-ibang klaseng music. Like pop, like jazz, yung pag-fuse nga, na mag-compose ng kanta tapos lagyan ng kulintang. Kasi para sa kanya, this is a good way of putting the kulintang in a more, modern and, for want of a better term, relevant platform. Okay? I'm not saying that modern is better, but let's face it, yung access natin sa kulintang is impossible unless, you are able to meet a teacher who can guide you how to play. So yun. In other words, Ma'am Aga gave me the blessing, okay, to explore different things on the kulintang. Okay? So, ang kulintang, you saw that in the image earlier, like this one. It's a set of gongs that are laid in a row, okay, that are mounted on a frame. And this one is, I'm at a studio sa Womb Works in Marikina, and behind me is a poster of Jimi Hendrix. This is basically the story of my musical life. Na parang yung kulintang, kung saan-saan ko na siya natutugtog. Sa iba't ibang lugar, iba't ibang kasamang, halo-halo mga taong nakatugtugtugan. Okay? Iba't ibang musiko na iba't iba ang mga gusto, iba-ibang style. Okay? So, and it has become, the kulintang instrument has become the iconic indigenous instrument that has represented the Philippines. So, isa ko pang guro na nagtulak din ng kulintang education is si Dr. Felicidad Prudente. Isa siyang musicologist. Okay? And isa sa mga ginawa niya habang nagtuturo siya sa UP many years ago is yung pagbuo ng musical ensemble called Musika Asya. So ano ba yung Musika Asia na yan? It's like a gong orchestra na maraming kulintang sets. It's like a kulintang orchestra. And yung repertoire nila is very interesting. It also includes mga pop arrangements. So you have like many kulintangs and they do covers of popular songs. Okay? And this was in the 90s. Okay? So nung time na yon, for yung mga ganong klaseng ideas, that's the kind of stuff that I was exposed to in college, growing up. Yung mga pag-explore, pag-eksperimento, okay, paghalo ng katutubong musika ng Pilipinas sa popular mediums and other genres. So, sa UP College of Music, in fact, national artist Dr. Jose Maceda, siya yung nag-pioneer ng musicology sa Philippines. He was a forerunner in experimenting with Philippine traditional music sa mga composition niya. And so in the environment, the musical environment in UP is such that we were given the opportunities to push the boundaries in music, so to speak. Okay? Now, at some point, ang nakakasama ko rin sa tugtog is si Bob Aves, the late Bob Aves. He's a genius composer and a jazz arranger. Nag-study sa Berkeley. And at some point, he's a great guitarist. But I remember in our conversations, while rehearsing, habang during the tours and all of that, ilang beses din niyang nakwento na sa mga tugtugan abroad, parati siyang tinatanong, "Uy, nasan yung Filipino sound? We want to hear something Filipino." At napaisip siya doon, ano ba ibig sabihin ng Filipino, tunog Filipino na yan? And that got him going. He started on a personal journey to learn different kinds of Philippine traditional music. Okay? Nag-aral siya ng octavina, okay? At nag-adjust siya ng technique. At hinalo niya lahat ng natutunan niya sa kanyang mga komposisyon. And he released 2 jazz albums na ang highlight is traditional kulintang. Okay, and these albums, you can hear them in Spotify. The first is Translating the Gongs, and the second is Out of Tradition. And they're based on traditional kulintang music, and then ang genre ay jazz. Okay, and then naglagay pa siya ng octavina, which is a rondalla instrument, because for him, this is what he perceives Philippine music to be, which is, embracing all the influences, everything that goes with it, okay? Hindi lang isang aspeto, but, even, the colonial influences, like the American style, which is jazz, and then you have the Hispanic influences, which is shown in the octavina. So, and then another person who I very much look up to is Grace Nono. She is a singer who did a lot of research on traditional Filipino chants. So, nag-aral siya ng mga iba't ibang traditional vocal music ng Philippines, and she produced albums that consist of arrangements of these songs that have been modified, na nagtunog pop, world music. So, actually, these people, sina Grace Nono, sina Bob Aves, isa sa mga leading authorities sa Philippine world music na nauso noong mga early to mid-90s. Okay? So, and this photo is actually 2 years ago in Sarawak. Nakatugtog kami sa Rainforest World Music Festival. And then, of course, I'm sure kilala niyo sila, Joy Ayala and si Bayang Barrios, so ang bagong lumad. Okay? Ang kasama ko rin dito ay isang guro sa UPC, Ma'am Malu Matute, na isang napakagaling na musician and kulintang player. And this was a gig that last year for Fête de la Musique, na ang ginawa namin ay nag-incorporate ng kulintang sa isang arrangement na of Manila, yung kanta. So, imagine that, yung Manila sound, the Manila song, okay, na nilagyan ng kulintang. Okay? And this is, the first time na talagang nakasabayan ko sa tugtugan si Sir Joey and si Mbayang, and they're very iconic in their own way. They're also considered the forerunners of Philippine world music, and more specifically yung paghalo ng mga indigenous music sa popular music. And they're still doing it. Actually, if you're watching a Bayang Barrio set, merong nagkukulintang sa kanyang mga kanta. Okay? And for Joey Ayala, I'm sure, halos lahat yata ng mga buwan ng wika, parati nating naririnig yung ginagamit yung kanta ni Joey Ayala. Ang lahat ng bagay ay we always hear that. Parati natin yung pinapasayaw sa mga bata. Okay, and that's a good thing. Okay, so now one of the gigs that I also had was at Coke Studio. Okay, nagkaroon ng isang segment sa Coke Studio na KZ Tandingan covered the song Ako'y Isang Pinoy, na hinaluan din ng mga Philippine indigenous instruments like the kulintang and yung kubing, okay? The bamboo Joe's harp. So, and again, never in my wildest dreams did I imagine na pwede mangyari ito because of the kulintang instrument, okay? So, and then last year, nadala ko pa yung kulintang sa It's Showtime. Imagine that. Tawag ng Tanghalan, they did a medley of Asin songs, and we all know who Asin is. Okay, they're iconic and they're known to be the pioneer of inputting Philippine indigenous instruments sa folk rock. Okay, so this is a Showtime gig last year. And then, isa rin sa mga nakasama ko sa tugtugan, I was honored to be invited by composer and jazz pianist Winston Raval. He is among the first to incorporate kulintang and other indigenous instruments in jazz, specifically for film music. Okay? So, film composer siya na gumagamit ng jazz, tapos naglalagay din siya ng kulintang doon sa jazz, sa film. Okay? And ine-eksperimentohan niya ang kulintang. In fact, yung poster dito, nunal sa tubig, okay? Or in English, speck in the water. Okay? Here, Mr. Raval used kulintang sounds to provide some ambient background, okay? Tinry niyang mag-produce ng mga dark tones, more experimental yung approach niya. But, he is the kind of person who would do this, explore indigenous music in jazz and other kinds of things. And he actually won the Gawad Urian Award for his music, okay, sa mga ganito niyang gawain. Okay? So, and then, I don't know if napanood yun na to, yung Mindanao, the movie. This was one of the entries sa MMFF last year. Ang nag-compose ng music nito ay si Teresa Barroso. Nag-record ako ng kulintang. Kasama ko rin dito yung mga estudyante ko dati sa UP, si Chico Macorol and si James Gasmin. So if napanood yun na to and you hear some kulintang there, that's me. Okay? But this is an interesting project because sabi nga ni Teresa Barroso, because the setting is in Mindanao, specifically the Maguindanaoan people, it's a war film actually. Pero naisip niya, it would be nice na lagyan talaga ng kulintang music ang sining ito. And if we talk about film music, actually, this has been a research that I started also recently, na trying to trace and trying to compile lahat ng mga films that uses Philippine traditional music. And merong mga films as early as the 1930s. Okay? It's interesting to put together a timeline of these. Meron talaga tayong mga film na yung mga composer nito ay naglagay ng mga katutubong music, katutubong instrumento. And that would be a whole another webinar, pero wala tayong oras to do that now. So, now, okay pa kayo? I hope so. We're still good? Okay, now, and then the most recent project that I recorded was Kulintang for Mishka Adams, a jazz singer who also does Latin jazz. So you can check this out sa Spotify, yung song na Paalam. Okay? May nilagyan namin ng kulintang and in a Filipino pop song. Na meron din siyang mga tinges of Latin jazz. And then I also recorded in a Christmas album. Who would have thought? Some years ago, yung Jesuit Communications nag-produce sila ng Katutubong Pasko album. They wanted to put traditional sounds sa Christmas carols natin. And ang producer nito ay si Rani Torres and si Ronald Tomas. And I added, a few gongs here and there. So these things, if you're interested, they're also on Spotify. But again, itong mga iba-ibang klaseng proyekto na to, ito yung mga naranasan ko, okay? And these are the things these are the situations na marami ako natutunan, na ito yung mga sitwasyon na aking in-enjoy, ito yung mga sitwasyon na marami akong nakilala, nakikita ko na iba-iba rin ang gusto ng mga musiko, iba-ibang style. Of course, ang dami ko rin mga pagkakamali, and it's something that to learn from. And in all of these experiences, it's important to note the lessons along the way, and I want to share them with you. First, lesson 1, okay? Be mindful, and this is important, be mindful of negative attitudes and perceptions toward both traditional music and popular music, okay? So, this is important. Kasi from what I've seen and from what I've learned, from what I've observed dito sa mga taong nakilala ko, taong nakatrabaho ko, and I've really learned so much from them, okay? If there's one thing that I've learned from them is that music is really all-encompassing. And dapat matuto tayong maging mas accepting at mas maunawain sa mga iba-ibang klaseng musika na nandyan. Okay? You don't have to like all kinds of music, but you can appreciate it for what it is. And be mindful of the negative attitudes. And for me, it's time to be honest here. These are the things na naririnig ko, at sometimes, we also need to correct ourselves. Ang mga negative perceptions or negative attitudes toward traditional music that I encounter, I observe from people, what I hear, and what I see also in my students sometimes, okay? Yung pag-iisip na pag sinabing traditional music, it's primitive, okay? Ano ibig sabihin ng primitive? Wala. But actually, traditional music is legit music. It's organized. May sistema sila. If you took the time to learn and understand it, okay, one will discover that there is a system to the music. There are key concepts. There are profound aesthetics that need to really be understood. Okay? So, ang traditional music, hindi siya yung parang, okay, wala lang. Okay? Pangalawa, hindi siya low class. Okay? And again, I'm not here to offend anybody, but this is my observation. Sometimes, in previous trips with NAMCIA, okay, I meet teachers, and I meet different kinds of people. Yung mga performances, yung mga CCP concert of showcasing the winners of the traditional music category, okay, minsan, nakikita ko na sa audience, may mga tumatawa talaga. At hindi lang isang tao, kundi karamihan. Okay? And this is not judging those people to be bad. They're not bad people. Pero, yun na nga, hindi maiwasan na may konting stigma minsan na, na pag sinabing traditional music, mas mababang paraan ng musika yan. Kakaiba siya. So, medyo nakakatawa siya. These are the things that we should try to, as music teachers, we have the responsibility to guide the students and to tell them, this is not the way to perceive traditional music. Okay? Of course, we have to do it in a very, very nice way. Pero, in other words, yung mga ganitong pag-isip kailangan nating tingnan at ayusin. And another negative attitude, hindi kasi uso. So, in the context of Philippine music culture, yung traditional music is usually nasa fringes, nasa periphery. Okay? Hindi kasi uso. So, hindi yan cool. Laos yan. Huwag yan. Okay? And again, these are the things that we have to be mindful of. Thing is, pag sa popular music, meron din tayong mga nakikitang negative attitudes. Okay? Isa sa mga nakita kong, na-encounter ko rin, is some people would perceive popular music as mababaw. Yun na yun, paulit-ulit. Diba? Isa pa is, tinuturing siya na low art. I remember as a student, as a music student many years ago, naabutan pa namin yung panahon na pag sinabing pop, hindi pa yan gaano inaaral. Okay? Hindi pa yan yung tipong, hindi yan legit music, hindi yan yung iniintindi. Okay? And it was kind of regarded as taboo pa nga. Like, okay? But ngayon, nagbabago na yung pag-iisip. Okay? Popular music is worthy of study. Meron na mga pop music scholars. Okay? And kayo, mga music teachers, we need to understand this very, very carefully. Okay? Popular music is an important aspect that needs to be studied, explored, and appreciated for what it is. Okay? Is that clear? I hope so. Okay? So, now, again, itong mga negative attitudes kailangan natin, we need to address these. Okay? Because the minute we start entertaining these thoughts, they limit, okay, our ideas, they limit, okay, our perspectives sa musika. Okay? Now, the second lesson that I learned along the way is that when you teach Philippine music, how do we become effective? And I mentioned this earlier. It's not just simply fulfilling the requirements sa textbook. Okay? Hindi ibig sabihin na kailangan matugtog nila lahat yan. Okay? And sometimes it's intimidating, right? For the teacher. Okay? Sometimes there's too much jargon, too much knowledge. Okay? But Philippine music has to be fun. It has to be something that people connect to. Musika natin to eh. Okay? Kailangan bilang music teacher ng Philippine music, okay, dapat maramdaman ng mga estudyante natin, na this is our music. Okay? Okay? And it's fun. It's something that we can connect to. It's something that we find true meaning and expression. Okay? So, allow your students to see your musical journey. Dapat makita rin nila, ano yung kwentong pagiging musiko mo. Okay? Kahit na yung pagkakamali, kahit yung mga sablay, okay? Makita nila yan. Because it really has to start with what is most meaningful to you. Sometimes if you're overwhelmed, Philippine music, my God, paano ba natin tuturo yan? Start first with what is most meaningful to you. Maybe a song, a Filipino song that you really like. Okay? Share it to the students. Okay? Kahit na ibang panahon yan, maluma na yung kantang yan. Pero, if there's one thing na nagpapasalamat ako sa mga magulang ko is, at yung mga tito ko, is that they'll sometimes give me albums and they let me listen to music na hindi ko panahon, so to speak. And I've learned so much from that. Okay? So, this is something to think about, okay? As a teacher of Filipino music, okay, start with what is most meaningful to you. The textbook is there, okay? It's there. Nandiyan yung guide, they tell you what it is. But personally, you don't have to follow it to be an effective Philippine music teacher. Okay? Dapat, because, Philippine music is about you. So, it has to be something that makita ng mga tao, this is something that you embody. This is that you breathe the music. Okay? And it's something that surrounds you. Kung saan mang lalawigan ng pinanggalingan nyo, maybe start your Philippine music classes, you can start with the music that is there. Okay? Maybe yung kinakanta sa'yo ng nanay nyo habang para patulugin kayo. Okay? Ang dami natin mga traditional lullabies. Okay? Just find a good place to start that is most meaningful. And sa akin, that is the most important thing. Third lesson, kaya pa natin. Okay? In the search for a Philippine music identity, and karamihan sa mga musicians, the music scholars, the people that I've encountered, yung mga pinakita ko sa mga larawan earlier, those people, if there's one thing, one motivation for doing what they're doing is yun na nga, to try to find that Philippine musical identity. But in the search for that, traditional music and popular music are both socially and culturally relevant and meaningful. Yan ang dapat natin pag-isipan. Okay? Hindi pwedeng isang aspeto ng Philippine music lamang. Okay? If we're trying to understand and trying to search for a Philippine musical identity, historically speaking, sa kasaysayan ng musika ng Pilipinas, traditional music and popular music, they're both relevant and meaningful. Okay? So again, these two concepts, traditional music, popular music, they're kind of the underdogs, kumbaga sa music. Okay? Pero, the thing is, if there's one thing that they share in common, is that people relate to them. They express life. Okay? They tell the stories about what's happening in society, about what's happening around us, and what is meaningful, basically. And they did intersect at some point. If we're gonna talk about Philippine pop history, okay, meron actually label na ginawa ang ating national artist, si Ramon Santos. You will find this in the CCP Encyclopedia and in other materials, literature on Philippine music. Sir Santos actually put a label to it. Ang tawag nito ay ethnic pop. Okay, so there is actually a point in time sa Philippine pop na nag-intersect pareho. Okay, meron tayong mga musika na nagsama talaga sila. And ang tawag ni Dr. Santos dito ay ethnic pop, a genre that seeks to integrate ethnic elements, musical structures, instruments, and costumes into pop music culture. Okay, I think that's very self-explanatory. And pag sinabing ethnic pop, usually they tackle contemporary issues. Kunyari, human rights, the environment, social justice. And it is a quest for a unique and national identity and liberation from colonial standards. So again, it was one way, the incorporation of indigenous elements into popular music was one way of liberating from colonial standards. Imagine that. And through ethnic pop, Filipinos are reminded of their ethnic musical roots as well as the current concerns affecting their daily lives. Okay? So, importante ang ethnic pop sa Philippine music, sa pagtalakay ng Philippine music, sa pagturo ng Philippine music. Okay? Dapat bahagi ang Philippine popular music, lalo na ang ethnic pop, sa ating pag-promote, sa ating pagturo, paggabay sa mga estudyante sa kanilang mga dapat matutunan when we talk about Philippine music. Okay? So, now, unfortunately, right now, because we're mindful of copyright laws and things like that, ang dami kong gusto ipa-sound trip, okay, to show how this all began. Pero homework na lang natin siya, okay? So, ayan, bibigyan ko kayo homework sound trip, okay? And hanapin nyo na lang at pakinggan nyo on your own. But yung ethnic pop, we see the beginnings of that in the late 70s. Meron ng mga ilang recordings and mga projects, that sprouted from there. If you Google, you should Google Pinoy funk. Okay, this is an instrumental funk piece composed by drummer Jun Regalado. He's one of the senior session musicians in the country. And this is the first known funk recording na gumamit ng kulintang. And in my personal communication with Jun Regalado, at some point I was writing a paper and I had to message him. Pinaliwanag niya how, yun na nga, gusto niya maglagay ng Pinoy sa funk, and therefore, naglagay siya ng kulintang. Okay? So, that's basically the explanation. But long story short, yung kulintang, yung nag-symbolize, yung nag-represent ng Filipino sa work niya. And you just find this in YouTube, meron yan dyan. Okay? Again, this is Homework Sound Trip. Another one from the late 70s, okay? Watch out for Ang Bayan Kong Sinilangan. This is a song by Asin. And as I've mentioned earlier, this is the first known folk rock song with kulintang. At maririnig nyo to sa Spotify. This is, the interesting thing about the digital age is that talagang na-heighten yung nostalgia, and now we have access to materials that we never thought we could listen to. Okay, ngayon, this is in Spotify. And this is a song that talks about yung conflict sa Cotabato. Okay, and from my research, this has been so far the first known folk rock song na may kulintang. Okay? Okay, now, Homework Sound Trip from the 80s. Hanapin nyo, narito ang Eden. It's also on Spotify. This is arranged by Eddie Munchi III, another leading session musician back in the day. And what's interesting about these session musicians, you really learn from them. Sila yung may itch to, explore creatively. Trying to put Filipino into things. And they were among the first to experiment with indigenous instruments, Philippine indigenous music sa popular music. And this arrangement this song came out in Kule Desma's album, Ako'y Filipino. So siya yung kumanta. Very, very long piece, actually. At marami kayong maririnig. Talagang this is a long popular song. This is a long pop song. May kulintang, may konting kulintang, and then meron mga konting Indian sampling, and then may konti pang mga slow funk, and then there's like guitar solos and things like that. So, look it up. Again, Homework Sound Trip sa 80s. And what happened also in the 80s, when it comes to ethnic pop, our national artist Ryan Kebyab, composer, he was, kinakwento niya how after EDSA Revolution, 1986, so yung mga time na yun, according to Mr. Kebyab, yung mga tao talagang feel nila yung pagiging Pilipino, more nationalistic sentiments. So, nagkaroon daw ng parang meeting yung mga, those who are, big in the industry. And isa sa mga pinag-usapan nila is how to, create a Filipino sound sa pop. How can we define Filipino pop music na maririnig mo siya sa music? Pag napakinggan mo siya, malalaman ng mga tao, Pilipino yan. Okay? And Kaya Biab, at that time, attempted to come up with a formula, a template for Philippine pop. Na parang sa kanya, maybe we can try to create a sound that defines us, that will define our pop music, because there are other music cultures around the world that they would do the same. And para sa kanya, this will have to be through singkil, yung singkil rhythm. You know what singkil is, okay? This is a Maranao dance tradition na gumagamit ng mga kawayan. Okay? And for Kayabyab, the use of singkil is like associating it with other musical cultures around the world. I mean, kunyari, if Cuba has the clave, di ba? If Brazil will have your samba rhythm, Kayabyab's idea was, maybe rhythm is key. If there's one thing to define Philippine music, maybe it can be through rhythm. And in this case, it would be the singkil. And what is the singkil rhythm? Well, this is what it's like. Okay, so if you wanna clap it. Now, usually sa mga bamboo, di ba, ang nangyayari dyan, there's some parts that you hit on the floor and then kinaklap dito. So, Sa singkil, yung, yung 4 counts niya, the last 2 notes of every bar, yun yung parating sa taas. So if it will be, wow, really talagang using my imagination here. And then variation. Okay, so for Kayabyab, this rhythm might be very versatile. It's a good thing to use sa pop at gawing template as for Philippine pop. Now, according to Mr. Kayabyab, just like in anything, somehow the project did not come, hindi siya natuloy. Wala lang. But, yung template na yan is the same template that he used in a commercial back in the 80s. I don't know, siguro may ilan sa inyo naalala to. And this is another homework. Hanapin nyo lang sa YouTube. Okay? Yung Kantang Angat sa Iba, it's a commercial jingle for Sarsi. And if you read the accounts, if you search on the internet, at that point in time, Sarsi was really trying to make a big comeback. Kasi kung ikumpara mo sa Coke and sa Pepsi, Coke and Pepsi were both top. And Sarsi, the local product, naiiwan sila. And nung time na yon, Coke and Pepsi, talagang they begged on music. Yun ang kanilang marketing scheme. And Sarsi, naisip nila, let's come back, let's use music. And again, listen to this on your own free time, because dito, ginamit niya yung syncel rhythm and a bunch of other things. Okay? So, from exploring all of these, yung simula ng ethnic pop, a bit of the history there, okay, some insights that I gained from this is that ethnic pop is embedded in the history of Pinoy pop. So bahagi siya, okay, ng Pinoy pop. When we talk about Pinoy pop history, when we talk about Pinoy pop studies, malaking bahaging ethnic pop, okay? One can always go deeper into studying and appreciating both Philippine traditional music and local pop. Okay? This is one thing to keep in mind. As Philippine music teachers, initiate yung curiosity nyo na to study and appreciate and discover more local pop here. Hindi lang to about yung pop music na nangyayari sa Manila, but pop music in different parts of the country. I remember many years ago, sa Penguin Bar in Malate, wala na yung Penguin Bar yun, nakapanood ako ng Blaan youth, and they're playing pop music na gamit ang kanilang mga traditional instrument, yung mga faglong, and then may mga sumasayaw pa. But they wanted to promote their culture through popular music. And then, earlier I presented a picture of Dr. Prudente. Actually, one of her recent posts on Facebook was a photo of cassettes, recordings of Cordillera pop music. It is my hope that the pop industry would pay attention to these kinds of music, na ang daming popular music dyan na kailangan din natin tuklasan, na hindi lang sa Maynila, pero sa iba't ibang parte ng Pilipinas. Okay? So, in as much as Philippine traditional music, and there's so much to explore, yes, that's very, very true. Kailangan talagang, ang dami pang kailangan kilalanin sa traditional music. But yung ating local pop as well, we need to appreciate and dig deeper and understand them deeply. Nakikita natin na may connection tayo sa mga kanta, there's sentiment, and then these are songs that really shape us and influence us. Okay? Third, in Philippine music classes, the use of Philippine ethnic pop music can help students appreciate traditional music and vice versa. Okay? So, I believe really na with ethnic pop, marami na kayong napag-uusapan sa traditional music. Okay? And the opposite is also true. Okay? With ethnic pop, marami na kayong pwede ring tuklasan at pag-usapan tungkol sa pop music. Kung kunyari lang, kung yung estudyante, nakarinig siya ng kanta na may ethnic instruments, okay? Makikita lang niya, wow, kakaiba yung tunog, di ba? Okay? It gives already a unique sound to the popular music. Makita lang ng estudyante niyo yun. Okay, that's already a good sign that, you are influencing the student in a good way. Okay? So, yung relationship ng traditional and pop, okay, sa Philippine music, dapat bahagi ito sa inyong mga tinuturo. And of course, I'm pretty sure some of you are doing this in your classrooms, you know. Bahagi na dito yung pag-create ng ethnic pop fusion. But of course, we have to be guided accordingly. And these are some of my recommendations. Creating ethnic pop fusion, you know, are there do's and don'ts, okay? What are the things that we need to take note of? Well, first, treat traditional music with respect, okay? Study carefully before jumping into it. So, minsan, ang frustration ko, may mga tao na, sige, lagyan natin ng ethnic, pero hindi naman sila marunong tumugtog doon, hindi nila naintindihan yung musika noon, so, kahit ano na lang, okay? Sometimes, hindi naman mali yun, but don't get stuck there, okay? You have to exert the effort and take the initiative to understand the traditional music, to go out of your way. Lalo na ngayon, ang dami ng materials sa internet, sa YouTube, you know, things, knowledge is easier to access now. Second, students have to be guided by the music teacher. So, ikaw yung criteria. You have to, you know, be able to tell the student, ay, hindi maganda yan. Ay, bado yan. Ay, medyo hindi appropriate na inilagay mo yan. Medyo sintonado or whatever. These are the things that the guidance has to come from you. Hindi yung hahayaan nyo lang yung estudyante to do their thing. Okay? But you have to guide them because you know more, of course. Okay? You know how good songwriting is all about. You know good music making is, what it is like to play in a band, and so on and so forth, and how to listen to music carefully. And then, but of course, it doesn't mean that, you know, you have to be overly cautious. This should allow you to push your imagination at the same time. Okay? Explore. Yun na nga, nakita nyo, there are so many unique sounds emanating from all of these traditional instruments. And imagine putting them in pop music, you know, all the colors, all of these things that are happening. And hanggang ngayon, ako, na-excite pa rin sa mga ganitong exploration. And then, of course, we deal with issues like, lalo na ngayon, ang daming nag-aaway-aaway sa internet, cultural appropriation versus cultural appreciation. Okay? We need to clarify those two. Parang, you have to make sure that what you're doing is cultural appreciation. Na, you know, acknowledge the source of the traditional music that you're using. And if kaya, definitely magpaalam dun sa source ng culture. Okay? And somehow, find a way to give back to them also. Hindi yung parang, okay, kumuha ka lang tapos nagdamot ka na, yun na yun. Okay? And, of course, it has to be done nicely. Okay? Kung gagawin nyo na rin lang, maghahalo kayo ng ethnic, mag-incorporate kayo ng ethnic sa pop, tapos, hindi naman maganda, wag nyo na lang gawin. Or ulitin nyo na lang. Of course, you know, all the principles of musical aesthetics, it's important. You know, everything comes into play. At saka, yun na nga, panindigan nyo. Minsan lang, kung maglalagay kayo ng indigenous or traditional music, it has to look good. Hindi pwedeng bano. Okay? Don't do it if it's bano. Okay? So, now, okay, I'm gonna end this session with a virtual performance. So, I'm grateful that my bandmates I have this fusion project. Ang pangalan ng bandang to is Anahata. Anahata is the heart chakra in Indian philosophy. So we do world fusion acoustic pop. Wow. Mga ganyan. So, in other words, it's acoustic pop music na may kulintang. Okay? And I'm grateful for my bandmates. So, on vocals, si Chelly San Luis, who also plays cello. And she also has her solo act. Meron na siyang EP sa Spotify. And what she does in her performances is she also advocates for mental health. And graduated, estudyante sa UST, right? So, and then my good friend Dominique Robledo, who plays guitar. And then me on kulintang and percussion. So, yeah, this is our little offering for this webinar. And I'm grateful kasi medyo pinagpuyatan din nila ito, like, for these things, for this session. And yeah, I'm gonna share with you the first virtual video. This is a cover, this is a mashup of two 90s hits. And hope you enjoy this one. So that was our arrangement. It's a mashup of two 90s hits. One is from River Maya, yung Ulan, and yung isang kanta ay yung Naroon mula sa bandang Yano. So, yeah, that's our little project. We try to incorporate kulintang sa popular music. And the next video, and this is the last that I'm going to show you, we premiered this last June sa Days of Percussion Festival. And we just want to share it with you. This is a cover of a Beatles song, and hope you enjoy this one.
Thank you very much. We're back. Maraming salamat, Ma'am Tusa and bandmates for that very exciting performance and also for that very lively discussion on Philippine traditional music, on popular culture. Na-excite ako bigla kasi naalala ko yung bagong tunog. And ngayon, pupunta naman tayo sa ating Q&A. Meron tayong mga magtatanong tungkol dun sa ating napaka-exciting na discussion kanina. Siguro, tawagin muna natin si Miss Rachel May Ong. Yes.
Ayan. Hello po.
Hello.
Hi, ma'am. First of all, thank you so much po for sharing your insights with regards to Philippine traditional music. I am, for one, a student of yours before and currently am enjoying this kind of conversation and this kind of interaction din po. And I personally am teaching some grade 6 and 7 students currently that really needs to be informed with what a traditional Philippine music is all about. Okay. Some questions lang siguro no po. How can I, as a teacher, bring this Philippine traditional music to them with maybe you have a tip for beginners like me because I'm not yet as equipped, if I may say, with regards to this. Are there resources out there that we can use for our students in regards po? Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So, actually, salamat sa tanong, Rachel. And it's great to see you again. It's been many years. But I think for me, if I want to emphasize something in this discussion is yung halaga nga ng how popular music makes things accessible in a good way. And ang presence, ang paggamit ng traditional music sa pop is one way of making the music accessible. It's a good place to start, really. Kasi kadalasan ang mga estudyante and tayo, popular music is something that we listen to a lot. It's something that is natural to us. But traditional music will sound alien to us. It's not, something that we grew up listening to. So, it's a good place to start. Kaya, as I've mentioned earlier, okay yung mag-fusion, but it has to be guided. Because in that way, the students and the teacher can find something, a hook, na makaka-relate sila. They can find a way to connect to the traditional music somehow. And, of course, bukod dun, there are materials now. Ang dami ko nakikita mga video sa Facebook, things that are going viral. I saw a traditional woman from Mindanao na tumugtugtog siya ng kulintang pero nag-improvise siya, gumamit siya ng mga bottles. Okay? Tinono lang niya according to the kulintang tuning, but she was playing traditional music. And now that we're in this remote learning mode, talagang whether we like it or not, we find ways to familiarize with the traditional music, to innovate. And yeah, this is a good word, actually. Philippine music has always been about innovation. And I think na talakay din to ni Sir RJ last week. Culture will evolve. It's dynamic. And even in traditional music, people innovate. May mga nagbabago, but the changes is there, but they continue to live on. Okay? So, the technology is there. Ang dami na ngayon mga YouTube videos, which is a good thing. I'm really happy to see that people from the culture are actually posting their performances. Ang dami ng mga magagaling magkulintang. Ang daming mga napakagarang musika, mga ritual, mga festival na nag-showcase ng traditional music. Yeah, I hope that helps. And maybe I can send you links also later. I'll private message you. If you like.
All right, ma'am. We'll look forward to that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Rachel Ong, for your question. And ma'am, meron pa tayong isang questionnaire. I think we have time, no, para sa isa pa po. Ang isa pong magtatanong pa po, si Luke Stephen Thompson. Yes. Luke?
Good day po. Hi,
Hi,
ma'am.
Luke.
Thank you for that wonderful talk on this specific topic of yours. It's actually very interesting to hear these specific names come up when you recommended the listening list. I remember it from when you were teaching us in our substitute class
Oh,
in
yeah.
MUL 11. I MUL 10 po pala. So,
Right.
ma'am, I have a question po. When it comes to your arranging of music, with the inclusion of Philippine indigenous music elements, what is your creative process po?
Interesting question. I did not touch so much on this because it's a whole session again. And from experience, if you remember, I presented photos of these different musicians who would explore mga fusion sa iba-ibang klase music using traditional music. And they have different ideas as far as creative process goes. There is when I record, when I collaborate with different people, the process is never the same. Okay, but usually, when it comes to popular music, ang nangyayari, nagiging bed yung pop, and then kadalasan, ang nangyayari, yung traditional music is like put there as trimming, even if it's a good highlight, pero kadalasan nagsisimula, ang nagiging bed yung pop music. Now, some musicians really tried it to reverse that process. Na, hey, what if we start with the traditional music and then put all the other elements to it? And that's a harder process kasi una na dapat talaga mas malalim at talagang naintindihan mo yung nangyayari sa traditional music na yon. So, personally, I do try to go both ways. Okay. Now, of course, when you're combining two different things, two elements, two genres, what I do try to achieve is to express the both genres in an equal way. Hindi yung nagdo-dominate yung isa and the other one is subservient. Okay. So there are really many ways to go about it. Actually. There is no right and wrong way, but again, the criteria is it has to be nicely done. Okay? So I think, sa akin, for those who really want to start but don't know how, then start again with what is comfortable with you. Just take the baby steps. Okay? And then the rest will follow. I hope that helps.
Okay, maraming salamat po sa mga participants natin. Thank you for your questions. At syempre, dahil wala na tayong oras, kailangan natin magpaalam. Pero bago tayo magpaalam, magpasalamat po muna tayo sa ating speaker for today, si Ma'am Teresa Tusa Montes. Thank you, Ma'am.
Sir, maraming salamat po. Maraming salamat sa NAMSIA, kay Sir Ato, sa NAMSIA crew for inviting me sa webinar series na ito. Maraming salamat sa broadcast team. Sa laking tulong nyo sa pagbigay ng lecture na ito, kay Hans, kay Sir Rodel, and maraming salamat din sa mga nag-participate at nag-attend sa workshop na ito.
Okay, thank you, Ma'am. Thank you, everyone. Please watch out for our next session. It will be on percussion and drum set workshop by Mr. Saturnino Tiamson Jr. all the way from Hong Kong. Yon. So, see you next time. Maraming salamat po.